I'm introducing a new segment to the show called the Business Surgery. Now, I've asked a number of our listeners, I've asked all our listeners, and I'm asking you listeners now to do the same, to send in your business problems. And I and a guest will give you a quick solution to that problem. So the first question I've been sent, and John, you've been given a heads up for this, so you should be able to give a brilliant answer. The first question I've sent from somebody called Mark Johnson. Thank you, Mark. He said, as a business owner, I've always got too much to do on my to-do list. How do I solve this problem? So I'll give my answer first, then John, you can give your answer. How about that?
Sure. That sounds good.
Okay. So my answer, and I used to do this and I recommend this to my clients, is I've got a 10-step process to getting everything in. Firstly, I score all. I brain dump all my to-do list all on one piece of paper. I then have a scoring system which matches each job by urgency and importance. I then put the jobs in order, in priority order. Next stage is I go through that job list and then delegate as much of it as I can. And then at that point, I look at only the top 5 jobs on that list, and they are my to-do list. Everything else doesn't get done. And usually in that top 5 list, there is a really nasty job, the one that's really, really going to bother you. And that's the one you have to start with first. And it's the old phrase, eat that frog. So if you do the horriblest thing first thing in the morning, then everything else is a lot easier. And that would be my solution to anybody who's listening, and any clients that I work with. I always give them the same solution. So that's my answer to that question. John, how would you answer Mark?
Right. Okay. So first thing is it's a very good thing if you've got a to-do list, because if you haven't got a to-do list, it means you're content with where you are. And anybody in business, you should be striving to improve all the time. So you should always have things on your to-do list, as much as it would be lovely to have an empty to-do list. So that's the first thing that I would say. Now, my very old-fashioned way of handling it is that I write a to-do list on a piece of paper. I don't do it on a computer, but I choose to do that. I write it out each day. Well, I write it out at the end of the day, and I will work my way through things, and I find it satisfying putting a line through something and looking at my to-do list at the end of the day, which won't have a line through everything, but looking at them, I find that very, very satisfying. But then what I do is that I will rewrite that piece of paper. Ready for the next day, and I will do something not as scientific as what you do, Phil, which is a great idea of putting things in. I will do it in priority, but I don't give them a mark. And I will understand what you mean about the frog. You put the most difficult one on the front, the very first one, and sometimes you find that stay there for 2 or 3 days before I pick it out. So I would put it all. And I think the fact of physically writing it down again, and you're going through and say, I've had that for 3 or 4 days. What am I doing here? Why didn't I do that? Why didn't I delegate that? This is just not good enough. I'm sort of having a conversation with myself. I find that really helps drill into me that I need to get that done. So I will put them in order. What I think it also does for me, depending on what sort of character you are, I do that at the end of the day and then say, right, I put it down on paper. So I've taken it out of my head, and I know now, tomorrow morning, I know where I'm going to be starting. And by doing that, I'm not going to be, hopefully, fretting during the middle of the night and waking up at 3 o'clock and saying, do you know what? What do I need to be doing tomorrow? I've got lots of stuff to do. No, I've committed it at the end of the day. And yeah, I know we all work 24/7 when we're in our own business, but at least there's a bit of a cut off there. And I found that that's always worked for me.
Great stuff. So, Mark and everybody else who's listening, I hope you find that of use. So if you've got a business problem and you want it to be solved on the Business Surgery, drop me an email, phil@leadsbusinesspodcast.com. We'll give you a shout out, and hopefully me and a future guest will solve your problem.